In LeBron's case, to hear that he lost his cool is very, very surprising, considering how polished he is and where he's at in his career now. I'm surprised he admitted to actually hitting the whiteboard after game one, just kind of showing that he was frustrated and kind of lost his cool. Do you give Draymond the max to try to break up the Warriors team? Or if you're the Warriors, do you just give him the max because he sacrificed $12, $13 million to bring in KD? He's a good player, key cog for your team, and is able to do a lot of different things. LeBron, and you bring in another free agent, are they good enough to compete, with the upper tier teams in the Western Conference? Are they good enough to beat the Warriors? I don't think so. Are they good enough to beat the Rockets? Maybe, but I still don't think so. Welcome to the Kyrie episode of Pull Up, number 11. Shout out to Kyrie. I hope you're recovering well, man. I'm currently in Miami training. Just woke up from a beautiful nap, and my mentions are blowing up because I told Draymond, if they don't want to give him his bread, he should leave. It was a joke, but I was kind of serious, and Dre and I are friends. I wish him nothing but the best going forward. Congrats on another championship. I hate it had to be you guys, but well-deserved. As I said before, I'm back in Miami training, working on my body, trying to continue to figure out ways to improve, going through the biomechanics parts and a lot of body maintenance, a lot of functional corrections, and some of the movements I've been doing my whole life. Obviously, shoot a lot of baskets for that right shoulder, and I continues to go through different things as we progress into the career. So just trying to make sure that right shoulder is loose, especially around that trap area, so that I can continue to make it rain for as long as possible. Really looking forward to getting back on the court here shortly, and that'll take my workouts to a whole nother level, and I'll be able to continue to get closer and closer to game shape as we round out June and get closer to draft week. I haven't seen any of my teammates lately, but I've been talking to some of them. Shout out to Ed Davis, talked to him the other day. Working on a vacation here shortly. Shout out to Dame, and his baby. I know that he's enjoying some time with his young one. His young one's holding a bottle now on his own. It's crazy how time flies, but I have talked to a few teammates, and without further ado, we're going to welcome Jordan before we get into LeBron and the whiteboard and his hand and similarities to Marcus Smart. Never thought I would say this, Marcus Smart and LeBron, doing something similar. But without further ado, Jordan Schultz, welcome.
CJ, I'm just wondering how that South Beach lifestyle is treating you.
It's going well, man. Honestly, I'm in a high rise, so I can oversee the city. It's really, really peaceful. Haven't really got involved in nightlife. I got a chef cooking all my meals, trying to really tighten up the diet, tighten up my body, and get as much sleep as possible. As I told you before, I extended my nap when you said you needed a little bit more time for the pod today. I was excited about that. I was able to sleep a little bit longer. And just continue to try to get as much rest as possible, watching as much Netflix as possible. Have to watch the Billions season finale tonight because I'm a little behind. Seriously, bro. I'm in for a treat. I can only imagine. And I also finished up, I think it's called The Big Money Heist or something like that on Netflix, which was really, really, really good.
Well, you and your Netflix, that's hand in hand. I recommend Evil Genius to you. That's a good one. And, the Billions obsession must have hit full fever pitch having Brian Koppelman on last week. How exciting was that for you? Because that I could just sense that was a big deal to you, having Mr. Billions himself on.
Yeah, besides having my brother on, I think that's the pinnacle of my podcast. Having the Billions producer and director on, just getting some insight on him, understanding that he does meditate as well, understanding that a lot of us go through different things in our day-to-day lifestyle where we have to unwind. We all have different addictions and things that kind of bring us in and pull us in. So I think it's just important for people to understand that regardless of the profession, regardless of where you're at in life, we all go through, different things, different obstacles. So just hearing him kind of share some of those things, share, the importance of saying no, share the importance of, figuring out your time management and having to not go to dinner invitations, not go to certain events because you have to focus on yourself and your family and some of your close relationships. I think it was great content, not only for the world, but for myself. And just the fact that he's the producer of Billions was just the cherry on top because I'm obsessed with Billions. And honestly, I jokingly told somebody the other day I would pay to be on the show.
I totally believe you. And here in the biz, we call this a transition. How about the relationship between – can we compare the relationship, between CJ and Billions to LeBron and the whiteboard? I guess that's a little bit of a stretch, right?
Yeah, definitely a stretch because Billions is a love-love relationship. There's no hate. There's no hate involved. So
there's not ever a love-hate? Okay.
Yeah, in LeBron's case, obviously, He's one of the most mature, upstanding citizens, out there, regardless of sport, with his charitable contributions, what he does for the community, what he does for the sport as an ambassador in general. So to hear that he lost his cool is very, very surprising, especially, considering how polished he is and where he's at in his career now. But that just kind of shows you the magnitude of game one and that loss and kind of what it did for the team's morale and what it did for the team going forward. It was just a tough, tough blow. But that just shows we're all humans. We all make mistakes. Obviously, his hand was an issue, but he still averaged a triple-double, and he's not going to use that as an excuse. And I want to get your thoughts kind of on wearing the cast post-game as opposed to just kind of cruising off in the sunset, not bringing it up at all.
Yeah, that's the thing for me that I thought was strange, because I understand that the guy gets hurt, and that, as he said, he's pretty much playing with a broken hand. And I also understand that he'd want to hide that throughout the series, because in the NBA, as one player told me this week, that's a weakness, and if guys know, they're going to hit that hand. Right. So I totally get it. I just didn't understand necessarily the necessity of using it, or as perhaps using it as an excuse following Game 4. Because couldn't he have just as easily done his media, done his press conference, left the arena in the cast, and nobody finds out?
Right. I was surprised he did that. And I'm not sure what the thought process was behind it, or if the trainers kind of wanted to get some compression on it right away, since the series was over and since he was going to be heading home. But, obviously that's something to kind of create a dialogue, kind of create a discussion. And I don't think he was trying to make excuses, because I thought the ankle was more of a problem than the hand, honestly. When he twisted his ankle in that game, and they asked and tried to basically, get his temperature on whether or not it was going to affect him. I think the ankle was probably more of a problem than the hand. But I always think it's interesting. Yeah,
but the ankle we saw, nobody knew about the whiteboard, and the Cavs did a good job of keeping that under wraps. But it surprised me that he would have come out with that after Game 4. And I don't know, like I think about like other great players. Would they do that? Like, would Kobe do that? Would Michael do that? I don't know the answer to that. I did think it was really strange, and I thought it looked kind of bad.
Yeah, I think I'm indifferent about it, only because the series was over, and I think it took more in him to admit to his faults, to admit to punching the whiteboard, than it did for him to just wear the brace in public. I'm surprised he admitted to actually hitting the whiteboard after Game 1, which kind of showing that he was frustrated and kind of lost his cool, and potentially could have hurt the team, by really damaging.
Well, that was self-inflicted damage.
Yeah, self-inflicted.
That was self-inflicted damage.
So that's why I was more surprised he brought it up, because he could have just not said anything about it, went into the offseason, and they could have announced later that he hurt his hand and that he was going to be getting a procedure done, or just kind of letting it rest. But for him to admit to actually hitting a whiteboard showed you that he was really pissed and was accepting responsibility, although he accepted it a little late in dramatic fashion, in the sense that now people are kind of using that as an excuse, although he never said it was an excuse.
Well, when you roll an ankle in a game, that's one thing. But when you punch a whiteboard after a game, granted in absolutely legitimate frustration following the J.R. Smith gap, that's self-inflicted, and it's not something that you would expect, to your point, from somebody like LeBron, who really does everything the right way, on and off the floor.
Right. He doesn't make mistakes in life or on the court, really, in general. So for him to make that type of mistake, in a pivotal moment in the series was surprising. But I think it's a good lesson. Kind of similar to Marcus Smart, to where Marcus Smart hurt his hand so bad he was out for weeks at a time, at a crucial point in the Boston Celtics series. And, it was kind of a big deal, but then it got swept under the rug. I think the same thing will happen with LeBron. It's a big deal at first, but the season is over, so people will forget about it. But people will not forget about that KD dagger from 6 feet behind the line.
How great was that?
Was that the legacy shot? Was that another legacy shot?
Yes.
Something that you'll remember forever from KD?
Yes. And by the way, just to close the loop, LeBron did shoot 27% from three the final 3 games. Iggy was back, but I just think it's worth mentioning. Clearly that hand was not 100%. Okay. In terms of KD, that was the shot and that was the game that he needed to have. What I mean by that was, yes, he was the MVP last year when they won it. But the Game 3 that he had when nobody else, especially Steph, who goes 1 of 11 from 3, played well, that was the shot in the game that KD had to have. And he got it, and he has not only the game, but he has that crazy pull-up 3 to ice it. That was fantastic. and he hadn't had that moment with Golden State up until that point.
Yeah, I think one of the most underrated things about KD is his ability to perform in the clutch, his ability to consistently get buckets. I think, besides the elimination game, he had scored 25 or more points in every finals game he had played in up to this point. So his efficiency, his consistency has been there since the beginning of time. And I seen this stat on Synergy. It said over the 10 games since the start of the Western Conference Finals, Kevin Durant has shot an field goal percentage of 50% on isolation, 68% in pick and roll, and 74% on spot up. So that kind of shows you the three phases of the game: isolation, pick and roll, spot up. He's able to dominate in every facet, whether that be mid-range, whether that be three-pointers, whether that be getting to the basket or the free throw line. He literally did everything, kind of showed everyone kind of what he said. It's easy to be good on a bad team around bad players. It's hard to be great on a great team full of great players. And some people will argue that that's not true, but I think, there's positives and negatives to that statement because he's right. Everybody can't be great on a great team. It's obvious, and some players, are empowered by teammates around them, so they look better in their roles. Some role players look better. Obviously, JaVale McGee's a guy who looks unbelievable, broke the Warriors franchise record for field goal percentage, in a postseason and in the finals. So you kind of see how you're able to elevate other players. But he's one of the reasons why other players are great. He's able to elevate Steph. He's able to elevate Clay. He's able to elevate role players, Iggy, and make some of those guys a little bit better. And they also empower him and allow him to get more one-on-one situations, allow him to get more catch-and-shoot opportunities. And I think it's kind of allow for his game to come full circle. And although I wasn't happy with the move that he made, he had a right to make it. He was a free agent. He had to do what's best for his brand and his family. And I think he's a better player now than he was in OKC. He has a better understanding of the game, has a better pace, is a better playmaker, is a better defender, is a better rebounder. And I think the move has allowed him to evolve to where if he does decide to leave this team at any point, he will be a completely different player than he was in OKC.
Well, Houston was built around stopping Durant. I thought he showed his mettle in that series because it was hard oftentimes against Houston for him, and he still found a way to get it done. Then he goes up against Cleveland, who we know is a really bad defensive team. You've talked about that. But that was the game 3, where had they lost, this series turns. Then it's 2-1. Then home court is still maintained, or at least Cleveland still has, the opportunity to go 2-2 back to Golden State. And for him to say that it was like playing at Barry Farms, that was, by the way, those are the outdoor courts in D.C. where he played as a kid in the DMV.
That's what
for him to say that Game 3 of the finals was like playing at Barry Farms, that is a joke. How damn good is this guy if he's talking about Game 3 of the finals like it's an outdoor AAU tournament?
And that's just kind of the way he approaches it. It's like a walk in the park for him. It's easy. He's able to get to his spots. Yeah. Even when he hit the game winner, he kind of looked like this is too easy. Like, I'm able to get whatever I want. I'm gonna show you how good I am. Last year I hit the walk-off 3 in LeBron's face, at the top of the key, kind of towards the left wing. And this time I'm going to shoot it from 5 feet behind the line and then swag walk it off and mean mug, letting y'all know that I'm here. And whether y'all want to compare me to the greats or not, I am a great one. Regardless of the decision I made, I'm still a great one. I'm one of the most well-rounded players to ever play the game and one of the most efficient players to ever play the game. And I think, his play and his ability to kind of manipulate situations is indicative as to why, Bob Myers said in some situations you don't negotiate. KD can get whatever he wants. And that's a bar. You don't usually hear people say things like that about a player in the open market. And he's saying, look, we don't really need to negotiate. He gets what he wants. And wipes and does the European phrase of it's finished, wipe my hands. Whatever you need, you got, bro. Just like that. Which brings us to the Draymond situation. And obviously, I'm involved on Twitter. People hate it, some people love it, whatever. I jokingly said that, get your bread, Dre, or leave, because Dre has turned down his extension in hopes of, receiving a bigger deal. If he receives, I think it's all NBA, all defensive team or defensive player of the year, or something around that nature, he's able to get a supermax deal, which is 5 years, $226 million. With that being said, let's take off the journalism cap for a second. If you're a team with the Warriors or without the Warriors, or outside of the Warriors, do you give Draymond something close to that, or do you give him the max to try to break up the Warriors team? Or if you're the Warriors, do you just give him the max because he sacrificed $12, $13 million to bring in KD? He's a good player, key cog for your team, and is able to do a lot of different things. What do you do?
Well, one of the reasons the Warriors are even in this position is because they bet on Steph early in his career when the ankles were a big concern and when nobody else seemingly wanted to give him that kind of money. But it wasn't. That allowed them the flexibility to make all these other moves. And for Curry and Clay and Draymond to a degree swallow their pride when KD came because he's now an alpha male that comes in. That said a lot about them as champions. Imagine the Warriors without Draymond Green. Steve Kerr has said, guys have said, that they felt vulnerable this year, the Warriors. That, to me, is the biggest sign that the Warriors have to have Draymond Green.
So you're saying you give him 5 years, $226 million if he's available for it?
I'm not saying they have to give him the Supermax, but there has to be some kind of happy medium. Because Draymond has to realize that Supermax players are guys like Chris Paul wants Supermax. Kevin Durant, LeBron. I don't put Draymond in that same consideration. I think he's a fantastic player. But he's not going to get the Supermax anywhere else. So the Warriors need to understand that he's a key cog for them on both sides of the ball, and everything they want to do, the defensive flexibility, the playmaking, Draymond is huge for that. But Draymond also has to realize that the sum of the parts is better with Golden State, and that his attributes are highlighted there. So that's why I think there has to be a happy medium, but not the Supermax, but also not some low-level offer either, because he's much better in Golden State than he would be anywhere else.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. I think he's on the books for 70. I think he's under a 5-year, $82 million deal right now. He was able to get 96 last year, but turned it down. His extension was similar to that range, but I think you have to look at it like this. KD and Steph are arguably the best players on the team, whether it's KD's 1A and Steph is 1B is kind of up for debate. But I think looking at their roster, Steph's on the books for 5 years, $201 million. You can't give Draymond more than you gave Steph because of Steph being a two-time MVP and kind of being the face of the Warriors franchise before KD got there, and probably still the face of the franchise if we're being honest. I think you give him more money, you give him a kind of a raise, a thank you for what he's done for the organization and kind of what he means to your team, and how valuable he is from a defensive standpoint. His defense and ability to guard 1 through 5 and help is crucial. Although his jump shot can improve some, there's some things he can work on, obviously, with the technical fouls. He's that spiritual leader for them and that energy that they follow. He's the one that's able to address KD, curse KD out, kind of get him to be more aggressive, get him to make an impact in the game. So I think he's a very, very valuable piece of their team. And although the numbers may not show it, averaging 11, 7.6, and 1.3, I think you have to give him a raise, although I don't know if it necessarily needs to be 210 or 220 million, but a raise is definitely warranted because of the fact that they've been able to win championships with KD, and they won a championship without him. So that kind of shows you how valuable he is from an IQ standpoint and what he means. However, I think there are some teams out there that will be willing to pay him close to Supermax to mess up the Warriors' chemistry. I think that could be something I don't know if he will get the Supermax, but I think there's some teams out there that will be willing to throw some money around to kind of put a wrench in their plans going forward, for sure.
Basically to say, even if they don't think Dre is that guy, they think that he is that guy for the Warriors, so they're going to overpay him to a degree to get him and help disrupt Golden State.
Exactly. Disrupt the pockets of the ownership, disrupt the pockets of the team, because then it affects the balance. These owners are wealthy enough to pay dollar for dollar tax, but do they want to go into the tax that high? You look at the fact that Clay's up going to be up for what, 4 years, 160, 4 years, 100.
Clay has 1 more year left on his deal. I think Dre has 2.
Right. So you got to pay Clay, and Clay's already said that he probably will take a discount. You got to pay KD this summer, whether that be a long-term extension or if he opts in for the $26 million by the deadline. And then you have Iggy on the books with, I think, $33 million left. And other than that, there's not a lot of guys making money.
Well, Steph's going to make $46 million in 2022.
Right.
That's his last deal. So he's really the only guy locked up long-term. And if you're the Warriors, you have to now ask yourself this. Is Draymond... is he valuable enough to overpay? I'm not even saying to pay a Supermax, but let's say they overpay him or they give him a massive deal, a max deal. Is he valuable enough? And then also, are you able to overcome some of the immaturity concerns that always go with Dre? Like, I think he's great in the playoffs, but he does do things during the regular season that some teams might not deal with.
Yeah, I think there's some teams that might not deal with him, but he's one of those guys to where if he's your teammate, you love him. If he's not your teammate, you hate to play against him. He's a competitor. I think that he's one of the better teammates I've seen in terms of his ability to empower players around him. He sets screens. He does all the dirty work. He'll take charges. He'll make the extra pass. He's constantly trying to figure out ways to distribute and help his team. Although he only averages 11 points a game, he's getting about 7 assists a game as a forward who's able to guard 1 through 5. So although he can get technicals at times and run his mouth a lot, and the refs continue to start to give him leeway, as Channing Frye pointed out, he screams and he does a lot of antics and stuff like that. But I think as he continues to get older, he'll probably mature a little bit more in terms of just starting to let stuff go. Play with energy without, degrading or showing up the referees. I think that's the next step in his progress. But what he's doing has worked. The team has been successful. They've won games, although he did get thrown out of a potential back-to-back. This could be a four-peat for the Warriors. And maybe if they win that championship, they don't even try to get KD, after that 3-1 lead was blown. But it's something that we have to see going forward. But I think that the shirt he wore during the parade was just kind of indicative of the type of person he is. Like, he's funny. He's outgoing. He kind of throws jabs at teams. LeBron wore that Mighty Warrior shirt, a few years back. And then LeBron, and them losing in the finals this year allowed Draymond to kind of get some digs with the Arthur shirt with the rings on it. So I think that they're kind of having fun with this, and I think that's what it's about. It's about having fun and taking advantage of the blessings the good Lord has given us.
I think when it comes down to it, Dre's a Warrior long-term. I think he's a fantastic player, and he does everything that they need him to do. Like, he embraces that role. I think it's almost more interesting to debate with Clay. And is Clay more important than Dre? Is he equally important? And then does Clay have it in his personality to say, I need to have my own team? And would Clay ever leave?
I think Clay's already said it. He's content with, being in the Bay. He's happy with the winning. He's happy with the situation he's in. And he's already said that. He doesn't mind taking less money because if he's going to win championships and be a key member of the team, I don't think he necessarily needs or wants or yearns to be the go-to guy because he's still a key factor. He's still a 3-and-D guy who does a lot of things for the Warriors and is very, very important for the Warriors and has been an all-star multiple years running now. So I'm not sure if that's high on his priority list because of the fact that he's able to win championships. So I think that's something we'll have to see going forward. And as the Warriors continue to try to decide, do they pay Draymond more? Do they pay Clay more? Or do we just give them both a boatload of money and roll the dice? I think they're in a great position because of the fact that they're one of the best teams ever assembled and are on the doorstep of, being in that dynasty conversation, having won 3 championships in 4 years, which is, very, very rare and prestigious group of teams to accomplish that. But with the success they're having, that allows other teams to kind of, figure out ways to improve. And, obviously there's rumors about the Houston Rockets. And I think Akron Beacon Journal columnist Marla Ridenauer says LeBron hates Houston and won't play there. I don't know what type of relationship she has.
Yeah, man.
she has with LeBron, and I'm not sure where she got this information from. But I think there are a lot of teams that are on the table. I don't know personally, what type of decision he's going to make, but I would imagine that he's going to consider all options because he's at that stage in his career to where winning is priority, but his family is also priority. So I think him considering all options makes sense, and Houston is a viable option.
Yeah, no, the Rockets are absolutely viable because I don't think you can roll a team out like that's on the verge of winning a championship, that has James, that has Chris. Obviously, Chris Paul wants the Supermax as well. I think the Rockets will give it to him. My biggest question mark with not only Houston but any team, especially a good team that is going to try to go after LeBron, is if LeBron comes in and says, "Well, I just want the 1+1," can you really bank on that and build around that? I don't think you can. I'm saying if you're a Houston or a team that's really close, because unless he's saying I'll sign let's say a 4-year deal, which he's not going to do, then I don't know how you can bank on building around LeBron, especially if taking it a step further. Like, let's say you're Boston, like the Celtics don't need LeBron. I mean, he's obviously the best player in the world, but the Celtics are right there. I was told by multiple sources that there's a slim chance he'll go to Boston or the Warriors. So why don't we throw that out and really look at Houston, maybe San Antonio, the Lakers, perhaps Philly, which I don't think is a good fit. The Lakers, to me, I've told you, CJ, I think that's the best fit. They can go out and get a PG, maybe a Kawhi instead. They have room for 2 max guys. Why wouldn't he want to go there with Magic, build his brand away from the game, use Magic as a blueprint, as a media mogul, as a global iconic brand, and then he can be the guy, with Lonzo, Ingram, Kuzma, etc. I mean, doesn't that make sense?
I got 3 things for you. All right, first thing, if you can get LeBron for 6 months, let alone a 1+1, you do it. You do it. I don't care if it's just for the playoffs. I don't care what the situation or circumstances are. If you can get LeBron on your roster, he improves your team regardless of what you have. He improves your team because he's arguably the best player in the world. He's able to play every position, guard every position, and can impose his will on any game at any given time, as we've seen with his 50-point performance in Game 1 and single-handedly leading that Cavs team to the finals. And people would argue they had no business being there. Looking at their roster, looking at what the Rockets' goals are, it's obvious their goal is to compete with the Warriors and win a championship. And LeBron joining that team puts them in a better position to do that. So I think they'll revisit and look at every angle possible to put themselves in a position to be as stacked and as good as possible going forward. So LeBron has a $36 million option or something along those lines. He can opt in or opt out. Either way, he can force a trade if he wants out.
That's my question. Is there any way he opts in?
He could opt in. He could opt in and still force a trade. You could opt in and negotiate to be traded. There's a lot of different options, that he could potentially take. But I think in his mind, I don't know if he knows what he wants to do yet anyway. He's probably going to step away from the game, take a vacation, and kind of settle down before even going through options on what he wants to do, because the season is so draining and demanding on you. You got to give yourself that mental break to kind of recoup and not make a emotional decision based on what just happened. So I think he'll have to do that. But looking at the Boston Celtics, they don't need him either. Yeah. However, they have a lot of pieces playing similar positions to where at some point a choice may need to be made. And then there's uncertainty with Kyrie on if he's going to try to go to New York. There's rumors and people are saying that, he wants to play in the Garden at some point before his career's over, and he's a free agent in 2019. So there's a lot of stuff going on behind closed doors that I'm sure the teams are trying to figure out, from a stability standpoint to a team need standpoint to, all right, we have Gordon Hayward, we have Tatum, we have Brown, we have all these great pieces and potential assets, and we have another first-round pick coming in the next 2 years. So there's a lot of things he could do there. I'm not sure if he goes to Boston from a legacy standpoint, having been in the Eastern Conference for so long.
Well, that's it right there.
I don't think he does that.
That's what I was told, that he doesn't want to chase. It's not appealing to chase Kyrie or KD with the Warriors. But there's only a certain amount of teams that can create the amount of room to sign him. It's like, I think it's Dallas, Sacramento, Chicago, and Atlanta. The Lakers, for example, are another one that they can create more than, I think, $70 million in cap. So
that's if they let Julius Randle go, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But the NBA needs LeBron in LA. When the Lakers are relevant, the league is that much better.
No, I mean, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying from a big market standpoint, and from obviously him being involved in acting and production and continuing to build his brand off the court. But from a competitive standpoint, LeBron and you bring in another free agent, are they good enough to compete, with the upper tier teams in the Western Conference? Are they good enough to beat the Warriors? I don't think so. Are they good enough to beat the Rockets? Maybe, but I still don't think so. And there's some other teams in the Western Conference, like the Spurs and those other teams who are very, very good and competitive in playoffs and have that chemistry to where him, another all-star, and Lonzo Ball, I don't know if that's enough. He needs shooters.
Well, Brandon Ingram's going to be an all-star.
He needs shooters around him. He needs players around him who can score without having the ball, because he's ball dominant. So you put around other guys who are ball dominant with him, I'm not sure how successful they'll be in those roles playing off ball, like having to slash instead of catch and shoot. But I think you're right. I think there are possibilities. But looking at that Lakers roster and what they would have to move to get him, like, how does that affect Kyle Kuzma, who's very, very good, has all-star potential, has franchise-altering potential? You bring in LeBron, that changes his career trajectory right away. It changes it.
I think Brandon Ingram's an all-star.
You think Brandon Ingram's an all-star?
No, I think he's going to be an all-star. I think it's just a matter of time.
You think he's better than Kyle Kuzma?
I don't think he's better than Kuzma, and I loved Kuzma coming out of the draft. But both of those guys have all-star ability, and both of them, to me, can play. Like Kuzma can spot shoot.
Yeah, Kuzma
Ingram can play on the post. And
Kuzma can, but if you bring in LeBron and PG, one of them is on the short list. One of them's minutes are getting cut in half. So it just depends on who they value most from a development standpoint. Because
but CJ, can you imagine? See, to me, LeBron going to the Lakers adds pressure to him. First of all, the only reason you don't want LeBron to go to the Lakers, you don't want him in the West. Can we just agree to that?
I don't care where he goes, honestly. I mean, it's going to be competitive regardless. I think the biggest thing is this. The Warriors are the best team in the NBA. That's the team everybody's trying to beat. So the other teams are trying to load themselves up and position themselves to be able to compete with them in a 7-game series. And whether LeBron goes to the Lakers or to Houston or whatever, that doesn't impact me or my day-to-day lifestyle at all. I'm approaching it the same way. Like, I have to get better. Our team needs to get better so we can compete with the Warriors. Obviously, there's other teams that we need to be better than, heading into the playoffs and throughout the playoffs. But the ultimate goal is to win a championship. That's what it's about. So, whether he goes there or not, that doesn't affect me because we got to figure out a way to get out the first round. Then we got to figure out a way to get out the second round. I'm saying that from a guard standpoint, they have wings. They're loaded with wings. Kuzma can score in a variety of ways. He can catch and shoot. Brandon Ingram's more, 15 feet in there, mid-post. He's got a variety of options, and his game is very, very well-rounded. But I think the Lakers are going to get Paul George for sure, so that's going to cut into somebody's minutes. And then if they get LeBron too, I think that you need a point guard that can knock down shots, that can catch and shoot. Lonzo Ball is very, very good in terms of seeing the floor, making the right passes, pushing tempo. But it's kind of similar to if LeBron goes to the Sixers. That takes the ball out of Lonzo Ball's hands. And if he goes to the Sixers, it takes the ball out of Ben Simmons' hands. And I think that affects their production. And it affects, how good of a player they can be. Although the teams would both those teams would improve.
To me, the one that makes a lot of sense, obviously, is the Rockets, given LeBron's relationship with Chris Paul. And I just don't know if that works. Part of me is like, they're great basketball players. They'll figure it out. And they're all smart guys. They understand that. But the other part of me is like, well, Harden wants the ball. Paul is willing to play off it to a degree. But then LeBron, like you said, he's a ball stopper. He's an unbelievable one at it, but he needs the ball. And then on top of that, the Rockets, I think the most likely scenario would be, like you said, he opts in, they trade. Maybe Ryan Anderson's in that deal, maybe not. But it might be a long shot, but it's one that Daryl Morey has shown he can pull off. Look at last summer with CP.
Right.
I just think the Lakers it'd be great for the league, and I think it shows LeBron embraces the pressure because it's not going, and at least to the fans' perspective, of taking the easy way out, going to a team like Houston that's already truly built to win a championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Bron at this point, the easy way out is going to the Warriors. So I think he's going to do that. But I mean, in this,
that's not going. He's not going to the Warriors.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way out. Him going to Houston doesn't assure them a title because of what they would have to give up. It would still be competitive, and on the flip side, they would potentially be playing the Warriors in the Western semis or Western finals, depending on the seeding. So that means that there's no guaranteed, path to the finals. So I think that makes it a little more appealing and interesting as to whether or not he'll go to the Western Conference because, the champs the three of the last 4 years are in the Western Conference. So do you join that conference? Is another discussion, I suppose. But it's almost draft time, and I think a lot of movement around the draft and during the draft will dictate cap space. It'll dictate teams' plans going forward and whether or not certain teams are trying to make moves. Obviously, Aaron Gordon's a free agent. There's a lot of potential free agents out here to where moves can be made to create cap space. Moves can be made to create room for LeBron, Paul George, CP, other potential free agents. So what type of movement do you expect to happen on draft week? I know you got your ear to the streets. I know there's a lot going on behind closed doors right now. Do you expect any movement?
Yeah, I think in the top 5, Sacramento's interesting at 2. I don't think they move. I think Atlanta could move. Memphis, who picks 4. The 2 most interesting players that maybe have elevated themselves the most are Mo Bamba and Michael Porter Jr. Porter, because as now multiple people have told me, I talked to a GM today who said this exactly, he is the most offensively talented player in the class.
Wow.
The guy's 6'9". He could be Paul George. Yeah. Wow is right. I mean, multiple executives have said the same thing. There's nobody more talented offensively. Now, the guy has serious back concerns. He barely played at college. There's mental toughness concerns. These are the concerns that you go into the draft with a lot of guys.
Jeez, mental toughness. They're coming at his mental?
No, that's not mental, but the knock on Porter coming out of high school was, he's a little soft. And then that knock became even more prevalent when he got hurt and didn't really play. And I don't think that's fair, but that's just the reality of the situation. And then Mo Bamba, I mean, this guy, CJ, he's freakish. The guy, 7'10" wingspan, which would make him longest guy in the NBA, had a Gobert. He's worked with Embiid a lot, and that's what NBA teams hope they're getting. He's really smart. He can shoot it. I think he'll shoot it a lot better in the NBA than he did in college. He's already significantly improved his. And again, this is not games, but like you can see his jump shot. It looks a lot better and more fluid.
I seen video of mine, but I like him. I like what I've seen from him. I heard about him when he was going into college. I heard someone say that if he decides that he wants to play basketball, he could be the number one pick. Like if he really likes it and starts to enjoy it. But I don't know what his love for the game was at. But it looks like he's starting to love the game. He's athletic. He's long. He's fast. He's quick. He has great timing. And I think that he's definitely going to impact the team based on his skill set and how quick he's developing. Like he's having rapid development in terms of his jump shot, footwork, ability to, use both hands around the basket. I think that.
Oh yeah.
I think that he's extremely skilled. So that's why I was surprised when they said that Michael Porter was the best offensive player because they're only seeing him in workouts probably by himself. So it's kind of hard to tell how great someone is when they only play 1 or 2 games in college and work out by themselves. Whereas Kyrie played 11 games, so he had a bigger body of work.
Yeah.
And you were able to kind of see everything. But
wings are such a commodity now. And it's a wing-driven league. And Porter, I mean, if he's right, the value there, whether it's at 2 or 7 you could get a legitimate all-star. And he was the number 1 player in the country. He could have been the number 1 pick had he been healthy.
I agree.
That's what you have to balance.
I agree. He could have definitely played himself into one.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that about Bamba, though. Because when you watch him play, can you believe this dude he's put on 30 pounds in 3 years. He's a teenager. Like, you can look at him and you're like, that guy could be a fantastic pro.
Yeah, you look at the skill set he's showing flashes of right now without even having NBA nutrition, NBA staff around him full time. He's getting summer work now 2 days, but it's not the same once you get around your team and they kind of take you under their wing and you're their personal project where you got a strength and conditioning guy working with you nonstop. You got everybody kind of, putting their eyes and time into you daily. I think that's when he'll really evolve. And you get to play in the NBA games and go against NBA contact and, really, really get to work on certain moves, whereas now you're working with a trainer, so you're not really getting guarded as much. But once you get to play against people and practice against certain players, that's when your game continues to evolve. So I think it'll be interesting to see how much better he gets, from year 1 to year 3 to year 5. Looking at Joel Embiid, who kind of had a redshirt year or two to work out against players, to practice against players. So his progression was different because he was literally training for a title fight, and the title fight kept getting pushed back. But he was already ready for the title fight. You know what I'm saying, if you get the analogy there. But if his skill set is anything close to Joel Embiid, he's going to be a serious problem.
Oh, man. And he's instantly going to come in and change your team defensively. I mean, he averaged almost 4 blocks a game, second in the country. As has been described to me, he shot the ball really well consistently throughout all his workouts out to, NBA. He can make NBA threes, but really as a pick-and-pop guy. And Porter had a private workout in Chicago where certain teams were invited. He was apparently incredible. He has another one this week. So that's why I bring up those 2 guys, because a month ago you didn't expect this kind of movement with them, but I think both of them have really helped themselves.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. The interesting thing will be Trae Young, where Trae Young goes. I'm interested to see, where he goes.
What do you think of him?
I think he's going to be good. Obviously, the size is something people always talk about. Is he 5'11"? Is he 5'10"? Is he 6 foot? But from a pure basketball standpoint, based on the skill set he showed in college, I think he can do a lot of different things. He'll be good in pick and roll. He showed he has range. But I think it just depends on where he's drafted, because you look at the shot selection, like, it depends on what type of team he goes to. Does he go to a team where it's his team, or does he go to a team where he has to be a role player, on that team, kind of, giving somebody else the ball, kind of setting the table, because he takes a lot of, high volume 3-pointers from far, far. He was taking threes from Jimmer Fredette range. If you remember the Jimmer Fredette days, that was kind of the guy I watched a lot when I was in college. But I never will say someone's not ready or not going to be good, because you just never truly know. Some guys are overrated coming out, and some guys are underrated coming out. I'm not sure where he falls in that line, but in college he was a killer. He was very, very fun to watch in terms of getting assists, leading the country in scoring and assisting for a long time, kind of single-handedly leading your team every night while getting buckets at 5'11" or whatever he is was impressive. I was impressed by his ability to dominate college. I would like to see him get a little bit further in the tournament, but it happens.
Well, he didn't have a lot of help on his team. He measured, by the way, a shade under 6'2" with a 6'3" wingspan. He is slight, but CJ, I get excited when I watch him play, man. Like, he's got that pizzazz, and I think the openness of the NBA game, the pick and roll, the transition, I think he's an excel. I would love to see him in the NBA on a team that allows him to be him, because I think if he can get in a system, like you said, where he has not necessarily full autonomy, but an opportunity to really learn and grow from mistakes, I think he can be a really strong NBA player.
Yeah, that's what's key in development nowadays for NBA players. Everybody's capable. It's just about what type of opportunities you're given. Are you empowered? Do they put you in a box, or do they let you go free? Because if they let him go free, I think he can find success. And based on his ability to be aggressive and fearless in terms of taking shots and attacking, I don't see why he won't have success depending on the role he's in and depending on whether he's in the Eastern or Western Conference. So I think a lot of things will factor in to his success early on. But
what was that process for you, learning, when you can make mistakes, what shots to take? I mean, as a lottery pick, you were the 10th pick, right? So the opportunity to grow. How did that go for you?
My situation was completely different. I wasn't drafted into a team where it was my team. I got drafted into a team that had LaMarcus Aldridge, Wesley Matthews, Nicholas Batum, Robin Lopez, Damian Lillard, six-man Mo Williams, Darrell Wright, Chris Kaman, Steve Blake. Like, we had a squad to where I got hurt, and we went from lottery pick to one of the best teams in the NBA. I think we won 53 or 54 games that year. So I wasn't able to make a lot of mistakes because we were a playoff team. So mistakes were magnified. Every game mattered. I had to know the 1 and the 2 and the 3 in terms of positioning. So being able to learn multiple positions while not playing is very tough because you're not actually on the court. I was hurt, so I'm basically watching from the sideline, trying to pick up on play calls and things of that nature. And then you got a shot selection issue to where you're used to taking contested shots, you're used to taking tough shots, and now you're not the first option. You're not the second option. You're not the third option. Shoot, you could argue I wasn't the fourth option. So you're out here trying to just kind of blend in and not sure when to shoot versus when to pass versus when to make plays versus when to be aggressive. So there's that balance to where you know who you are and what you're capable of as a player, but are you allowed to do it right away, and does it transfer right away? Because the role changes depending on where you get drafted to. So I think a lot of players have a lot to look forward to in the NBA, and then they have a lot that's going to surprise them, because you have to still be able to maintain your confidence and understanding who you are, why you're here, and what you're capable of doing while not necessarily being able to show it every day. And that's tough. A lot of people don't have that mental capacity and ability to overcome obstacles, fail, get hurt, go through stuff, family life. There's going to be issues that come up. Put all that stuff to the side, suppress it, and still be able to succeed in basketball. And I think, KD talked about it. He said that he thought winning a championship was going to just make his personal life better. It doesn't. Being successful in basketball doesn't take away from the personal issues you have. Those personal issues and stress is still going to be there, regardless of if you're MVP or if you're the 15th man on the roster. So you have to mentally be able to handle that and not be able to handle possibly not having success on the court, which is very, very tough for an NBA player to do. Like, there's nothing like walking into an arena knowing you're not going to play. That's one of the hardest things in the world to deal with. Sitting on the bench knowing you're capable of being great, not just good, knowing you're capable of greatness, but sitting on the bench is tough. It's very, very tough.
You were taking taxis 2 hours before games or 3 hours before games to get a workout, and knowing that, your parents were coming tonight, but you're not going to play.
Yeah, it's one of the most humble things you'll go through, besides losing and all that stuff. Not being able to do your job, being paid to do your job, but not being able to do it, something you love every day. It's tough, and that was my game. Going to the arena early was my game, literally. Me, Will Barton, T-Rob, Victor, Clavier, we get ones in, get twos in, run the bleachers, get a full lift in, full lather, to where I take a shower sometimes before the game, and sometimes I'm in a suit, DMP, and sometimes I'm on that bench in my sweatsuit, DMP, not leaving the bench. It was to the point where, guys would joke like, I shouldn't even put my jersey underneath this because ain't no way I'm going in. You know what I mean? So you go through that stuff, and it's tough mentally. It can wear on you. You go through depression.
Is it embarrassing?
Stress. Absolutely, it's embarrassing. You're at the highest level, and you feel like you're able to play out there. You're able to play because you showed it in practice. You might have showed it in exhibition games. You might have showed it at the end of regular season games. But, sometimes the rotation's just not in your favor. Sometimes you're a younger player, and coaches don't like to play inexperienced players. And other times it's just a matter of situation. There's an all-star in front of you. If there's a guy who's a veteran player who's very, very good and is in front of you and knows the ins and outs of defensive assignments, he knows the schemes better than you, and he's an efficient player, to where you just got to wait your turn. And it's hard. We live in an era now where we want everything right away. You want to be great right away. You want your relationship to be successful right away. Women want to get married right away. Men want to have kids. They want to do this. They want a mansion. They want money. They want everything to happen right away. And sometimes you have to be patient, understanding that, the trials and tribulations and things that don't work well in your favor, you appreciate it that much more when it happens later. And I think that's where I'm at in my life.
You feel like you found that balance?
Absolutely, but it takes time. It takes some losses. It takes some bumps and bruises, and it takes failing in certain things, whether that be on the court or off the court, to where you figure out how to manage your time better, how to manage your stress better, how to manage your sleep, and how to just be thankful for what you have, and not compare yourself to others, because there's levels. There's levels to this game and to this lifestyle, and you can't keep up with the Joneses in this lifestyle. You go broke or be unhappy.
Damn. Morbid. You know what's not morbid, C?
What?
The grape. Pinot Noir. Lately, I've been cheating on Pinots with the Cavs. It just kind of happened. And I'm not happy about it, by the way. I need to go back to Pinots. I was with our guy Devin Booker the last few days. We were drinking some Cavs. He's going to come on, I think, in the next couple weeks. He's going to be in Miami. I'm sure he'll be training with them. And we had some California Cavs, including a Frog's Leap, out in Rutherford by Napa.
Wow, that's impressive. Cheating on me with Devin Booker for what? No, I'm just playing.
No. CJ,
no, bro.
I knew you were going to be mad, and I apologize. But you know what? You're in Miami, living the high life. I'm merely in New York City, getting ready for the draft.
He works hard, man. I'm happy for him. He's about to get a stupid bag, but cue the wine music. I got something for you, Jordan. You've been cheating on Pinot. I have too. I must admit it. I had some cab last week, actually. My business manager was in town. It was his wife's birthday. We were celebrating. And actually, I think we went to Hakkasan or something like that. But I had this Caymus Vineyards cab from Napa Valley, 2015. And it's priced on Vivino at $84.97. But you can buy it for $74.98. And it has a 4.6 rating, which is pretty good. And it's ranked the number one in best wines between $40 and $80. And it's among the top 1% of all wines in the world. Very, very good. I enjoyed it. Not sure how many bottles of it we had, but we definitely had a lot of it. And I would recommend it to all the listeners out there if you want to get away from Pinot. It's not necessarily a strong and bold taste either. Like most cabs, it still goes down pretty smooth. Paired well with, rice. You can pair it probably with steak as well as pasta. I can't go wrong with it. I would definitely recommend that for sure.
I'm into it. I think, here's the beauty of this is I'm starting to get inquiries or people say, hey, I want to send you some wine. And I appreciate that, as does CJ. So we are all about trying new vintages and wines. But once you get back to New York, CJ, and you finish this Miami thing, I think we got to go back to the Pinot.
We do, for sure. And I have some Pinot at the house that's waiting on me. So I'm really, really looking forward to, getting back to New York and then getting back to Oregon so I can hit up some wineries with wifey. I might even take her to Napa this summer. So I'll keep you posted on that, on what happens from there. Lastly, I think I'm usually supposed to do a J. Cole quote, but I've been reading Everybody Always, Bob Goff's book, as I mentioned on the last podcast with Billions producer, and I got a nice quote from the book that I want to share with everyone. Love one another. What is simple often isn't easy. What is easy often doesn't last. When joy is a habit, love is a reflex. I think that's a great excerpt from what I've been reading and just kind of trying to take that into life. When joy is a habit, love is a reflex. So take that with you, Jordan.
I will.
Take that with you.
I definitely will, man.
And for the listeners out there, we appreciate you guys. Follow the show at Pull Up Pod on Twitter, Facebook, Insta. Follow me at CJ McCollum. Follow me at 3J McCollum on Instagram and at CJM313 on Snapchat. And you can follow Jordan
at Schultz_report on Twitter and Instagram. Jordan Schultz on Facebook. See.
And don't forget to
Hold up.
pull up.
Boom.